Guys, joining us to react to the action from UFC 265 is the voice of WWE Monday Night Raw, host of Sirius XM's Unlocking the Cage and UFC Fight Camp. He's kind enough to join us right now. Jimmy Smith, welcome back to Submission Radio, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it is all our pleasure, man, especially considering how late it is over there where you are right now. And the presses haven't even started at UFC 265, so this is a completely fresh take. I got to get your thoughts, man. I'm so pumped about this Gane win. I know that Twitter is kind of maybe divided, saying maybe it wasn't the most exciting fight. Dude, I loved it. I love seeing his composure. I've never seen somebody be so unfazed. Oh, come on. You're bored, Jimmy? You were bored. You weren't impressed.
No, it wasn't. I thought Gane did a great job. I don't want to take Ciryl Gane did. Hey, he looked sharp. He looked accurate. It's pretty easy when the other guy isn't throwing any punches. And that's, to me, the disappointing letdown of this fight, right? We all want to go, man, great performance by Ciryl Gane. And it was. It really was. I could have done it. Derrick Lewis landed 2 significant strikes in 2 rounds. It was insane. He just didn't throw anything. And so he let Ciryl Gane get comfortable and get comfortable and get comfortable and then take him out. And so the 2 stories of this fight are going to be, man, Ciryl Gane looked good. And my God, Derrick Lewis didn't throw any strikes. This is the least active we've ever seen, or at least, I don't know, statistically the least active we've seen him since the first god-awful Francis Ngannou fight. That was the killer to me. I thought, Gane looked great, but how do I judge that against somebody who had no significant offense the whole fight?
But I'm curious though, Jimmy, from your perspective, what was it that stopped Derrick from throwing those shots? Because, I mean, Daniel was talking about the fact during the broadcast it's in his hometown and there's a lot of pressure that goes with that. But then also you would know from obviously your fight career and breaking fights down, the way that Gane was in that fight, the pressure that he sort of put on Lewis and the fact that he had that stance and was ready to go. It kind of looked like it threw Lewis for a loop a little, like he had no confidence in there that he was going to be able to land anything.
You know what's underrated especially in combat sports, but in sports in general, but especially combat sports, is consistency, right? The all-time greats just performed, man, every time. It was like, man, GSP always looked good. You know what I mean? Yeah, he had obviously lost to Matt Serra, and when you look at the all-time greats, it isn't, man, this guy and a home crowd, and this guy had a weird style, and this guy looked funky, and this guy, well, okay, sure. If you want to be great at this, and not just at this, at anything you want to do, you want to be a great broadcaster, it's not, well, this fight, the fight I was calling was in a stadium. I'm used to something a little smaller. This one was outdoors. And yeah, you're going to face a lot of different conditions. You can't allow those to completely negate the way you fight. So anything we say about Ciryl Gane, yeah, Ciryl Gane came out with a funky style, but he usually does. Oh man, he was light on his feet. Yeah, but he usually is. Derrick Lewis not being prepared for that is kind of inexcusable. Not that, winning and losing, you're not always going to win. It's not that. It's having no offense at all because of the pressure of your hometown or anything we say about Gane's style. I don't get it. Yeah, he may have folded because of the hometown pressure, but the elites don't do that, and you wanted to be amongst the elite, and that's the way I see it.
I love it. I love this hot take, Jimmy. This is just great. I can't get over how composed Gane was all week, during the final face-off. Yeah. Like, Derrick looked nervous in the fight, and Gane looked like a guy who was laying on the couch, and his buddies just asked him if he wanted to grab a burger, and he's like, "Yeah, I got nothing else on." I've never seen somebody so unfazed by Derrick Lewis's power. You always see opponents who have that look in their eyes, like, I know that he can just basically kill me at any given moment, and Gane was in control for the whole time. He said he was going to do a masterclass, and it was. Daniel Cormier is talking about how he's like the new evolution of heavyweights. I almost feel like when he's got that stance and he's bouncing on his feet, he's like almost like a Robert Whittaker with a more narrower stance. What do you make of those comments that maybe he is the next evolution of a UFC heavyweight, Jimmy?
We're gonna find out real quick. We're gonna find out real fast, right? Because you are interim champion in your 10th pro fight. I think this belt, isn't worth the brass and leather it's made of, but it means you're facing the champ next. And we're going to find out real quick if you are the evolution of the sport. Yeah, heavyweights generally don't move like him. And I think maybe he's in that sweet spot of experience where 9-0, you're real confident. You don't know what you don't know because you haven't needed to know it yet, right? You really just haven't needed it. And so he's confident, doesn't feel he can lose. He feels that he has physical tools other fighters don't have, which is true. He's light on his feet, athletic, switches stances well, confident, pinpoint accurate, good range, knows when to attack, knows when to finish a fight, knows when to get it done. And he's been composed in there against I don't know about better strikers, but Rosenstrike and Volkov, his last two before Derrick Lewis, were much more experienced than he was in terms of their striking credentials, and he was able to negate their game. So he has a skill set other fighters don't have, and he doesn't believe he can lose. And believing that is everything. And right now, Gane has that. You talk about that relaxed attitude. It's because, hey, nothing's gone wrong yet, right?
It's interesting. So the next fight is supposed to be against Francis Ngannou, but also he knows Francis so well, Jimmy. I mean, they used to train together. We've seen the clips of them sparring. Do you really believe that Francis is the real test here to tell us where Gane really is? Or do you think it's down the track if he does beat Francis when he's versing guys like Stipe and Jon Jones and these guys who are bringing a different dimension to the fight game with him, which in a lot of cases will be that wrestling and that grappling and the mixing it together with him to sort of make things interesting?
Jon Jones, maybe, right? We don't know the X factor of Jon Jones at heavyweight. That is, I mean, I don't know, you don't know, no one knows. And so the interesting thing to me is, will Stipe be if he beats, and especially if he dominates, especially if he blows away Francis Ngannou, hey man, you're the man who beat the man who beat the man. I gotta say you're at the top of the heap, right? Would Stipe provide something different? Maybe, but Jon Jones would be the big, are you really great? Or, let's say he blows away Jon Jones. A lot of people say, well, Jon Jones is the natural light heavyweight coming up to heavyweight. If he beats Francis Ngannou, a guy who's been running roughshod over the division, if he is able to do what he did to Derrick Lewis to Francis Ngannou, I'll call him the evolution. I'll call him the future. I'll call him the best. Beat the champ. He deserves it. So would there be other tests? Yes, but Ngannou's the big one in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost feel like I kind of see what Dennis is saying with like Stipe being the bigger test because he brings the wrestling, and then Ngannou, like, you see the clips of them sparring and like Gane's doing pretty well, if not getting the better of Ngannou. If you were doing sort of early looks at that fight, who do you think comes out victorious of Gane and Ngannou?
That's a tough one. It really is. Always take sparring with a grain of salt. I mean, it's one of those things where, you're trying to help each other out. You're trying to learn. You're trying to this. You're trying to expand your game. You're trying, when Cody Garbrandt came out and said, I dropped TJ Dillashaw sparring. Well, he knocked you out twice. It's a different world. So I understand they can give us clues, but it's also, teammates trying to help each other. It's not a fight. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. Could Stipe bring something different at his age? A prime Stipe is different. I think we're seeing a Stipe who, just the years and the wars and the slugfest and all the stuff he's done over the last few years is starting to catch up with him. I saw a guy who was who had slowed down a little bit against Francis Ngannou. Could Stipe give him different looks? Yes. Could he be more persistent with the takedown? Yes. But I think I wouldn't qualify and also it could be if he beats Francis Ngannou by dramatic knockout, we could all be sitting there going, oh my God, that's amazing. I wouldn't qualify his win over Francis Ngannou by saying, oh, they were sparring partners and he knew what was coming. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Stipe might be a different kind of test. I don't know if it'd be a bigger test. Jon Jones is the big X factor looming down the road somewhere if they come to terms financially, which I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a second. But just on sparring Ngannou, I guess to your point, how different do you think it is sparring Ngannou or fighting Ngannou? Because he's got that crazy power, and that's not something that you really use in sparring. You don't want to hurt your friends. So I guess to your point, it could be a case where Gane experiences something drastically different compared to when they used to spar.
It depends. Certain sparring partners, depending on the kind of sparring partner you are and the kind of practice you're doing, all stuff, they'll turn on and put one on you. They will. It's one of those things where you're like, a powerful guy is going to hit you hard. They just do. They don't hit, fight hard, but they hit hard. also the way he sets up his strikes, the way he moves, the things that make that power work that are unique to Francis Ngannou. Gane's seen that before, but Gane has an interesting style that is hard to get used to, and Francis Ngannou has seen that a million times. So it's a blade that cuts both ways for sure.
And in terms of what you want to see from Gane, I mean, to really convince yourself, all right, this is the next guy at heavyweight. What do you want to see from Gane? And what aspect of that Ngannou fight do you want to see him handle? Is it the fact that Ngannou, well, we're guessing, would be very aggressive in that fight? I mean, there's still the questions. We've seen him versus Derrick Lewis. Does Gane go into a Derrick Lewis type situation where he throws a couple of shots and finds himself a little bit lost? Is it as aggressive as all the other Gane fights that we see?
Has he been in trouble yet? Not really. When you look at Volkov, you look at Rosenstrike, you look at this fight against Derrick Lewis, there wasn't really a moment in that fight where I go, man, he's behind in this one. He's got to turn it up. We got to see something. We got to see something special, right? We have to see your heart. We have to see your guts. We have to see your grit. Haven't seen any of that. And when I will be not convinced, but when I will go, okay, this guy really has something, when Ngannou connects with a good one or hurts him, and he has to make an adjustment on the fly, compensate for being hurt, compensate for the other guy's power, come back and win. That's big. This is a guy who's an excellent fighter, but he's also been ahead so far, right? He's the horse who's out in front, gets a good start, and is never behind. When you're behind, that's when we see, okay, do you really have the jets to turn it on? That's going to be the interesting part to me for Gane. If he gets hurt by Ngannou and has to come back, that's going to be interesting.
I feel like it's something that, we don't really need to cover too much, but just always pops into my head when I watch this. And that is the fact that when you watch these fights, Jimmy, do you ever think about the fact of what would happen if DC was still around at heavyweight? Like when I think of DC Gane, when I think of DC Francis, when I think of, obviously we've seen his series with Stipe. It's just hard for me not to go past the fact that, if this guy was still around, he probably has a very likely chance of beating these guys, of still being the champion. Do you ever think that when you watch these fights?
I do. It's certainly possible. What DC had was a combination of wrestling and underrated striking that it just is an issue for everybody. When I look at Derrick Lewis, when I look at Ciryl Gane, when I look at Francis Ngannou, Stipe is the only, as you said, Stipe is the only one who uses the takedown really that well. When you look at the guys who Stipe beat on his way to a historic title run, after Cain Velasquez, there really weren't any great wrestlers involved. Of course, Fabricio Verdum, a great grappler, a great jiu-jitsu artist, but that great Division I wrestler really wasn't there until DC again. So that's the deal that you wonder about, is DC brings a skill set that other guys just don't bring in this weight class right now. So yeah, if you were still around, it would certainly be interesting, but he's also really undersized for a guy like Ciryl Gane, who's a lean, big heavyweight. So it's interesting, the wrestling aspect that he brings, or would have brought if he were still in it.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot to unpack in terms of like what's next, and Jon Jones, Stipe, and the whole politicking side of things. But between the options, let's say it really is Gane versus Ngannou next, as opposed to Derrick Lewis. Do you feel like the UFC won here? Because, and I want to shout out to MMA the channel, who made a great video on Fernand Lopez, Gane's coach and arguably the godfather of MMA in France, who also highlighted, how much that guy worked to legalize MMA in France, and also, painted a pretty amazing picture. So now you've got Gane, Lopez's current star pupil, against Ngannou, his former star pupil. It's like a Jedi apprentice Padawan kind of whole thing. And if they can get it done in France, which is a massive, question mark with, the whole global climate, but it would be a massive, massive fight for, French MMA. And I just think the intrigue of it, two sparring partners going at, I think it's more intriguing than the Derrick Lewis rematch. What do you think, Jimmy? I
agree. And also you have an undefeated guy, right? You have that young up-and-comer versus the established veteran who's knocking everybody out. The issue right now is, I talked to Francis Ngannou this week, and he said it's been radio silence from the UFC since they announced this interim fight. I haven't heard anything at all. So it's a matter of kind of getting back to the drawing board with Francis Ngannou. Dana White, with this whole interim title thing, kind of hurt their relationship. And so we'll see how that goes and when it goes. But I think this is better for the UFC than a Derrick Lewis fight, because remember how bad the last fight was. And Gane looked great and Lewis looked terrible. So the right guy won. All that's important.
Yeah, you did a great interview with Francis, by the way, on your show on Sirius XM. What was your big sort of takeaway? And I know that he mentioned radio silence. Is that to be expected given that UFC 265 was this weekend? I imagine all the plans will be made after, finding a winner. But what was your big takeaway from chatting to Francis and how this has all been handled?
It's really bugged Francis. That was my takeaway from it. He goes, I didn't expect any of this. I didn't think that, hey, I'm in Cameroon for a little bit. I'll be back at the end of summer. And they went, no, we want you early summer. And he says, well, I can't. And they go, okay, fine. We're having an interim title. Like, that's what? That's how you treat the heavyweight champion who has the potential to be a real crossover star, who's knocking everybody out and doing everything you asked. And wow.
And was in the latest Fast and the Furious. Let's not forget that.
Let's not forget that. So, yeah, I mean, this is a guy who has a lot of crossover potential. And it's like, why are you trying to get to the top if when you get to the top, you get treated like that? And that's kind of how Francis, to me, sees that. And yeah, it was a real surprise to him. It was a real letdown. It was a real disappointment. And, the UFC kind of mending that situation is a big part of what happens next. But if you saw the opening of the UFC, it was Francis, when he wants to come back, when he's done taking vacations, there's a montage of him like trying on suits and in a sports car and stuff. And, it's an intentional slight against Francis Ngannou. And, they got to get past that.
It's interesting because he's had a little bit of issues with Dana White before he even became champion. And I almost feel like there's something going on there that we don't know about, but it almost feels like, not almost, it definitely feels like the UFC is really just trying to send him a message early on in his title career that then just basically going to try and control everything and not let him take any vacations for the rest of his life. But let's break down the fact that Dana said that Stipe has accepted this fight with Jon Jones because obviously Stipe signed the contract, but do you really believe that if Jon Jones comes back, Ngannou gets to fight Gane first before he fights Jones? Or do you believe that contract gets thrown out the window and they just throw Jon Jones straight in there with Ngannou as soon as they can make a deal?
I don't think Jon Jones takes any other fight. So
he said that he doesn't want to fight Stipe. It seems like a Dana White bluff.
What's the MO, guys? Oh, Stipe side, Jon Jones is just scared. Jon Jones just doesn't want to fight. No, he wants to fight Ngannou for a lot of money, and anything else is unacceptable. So the idea that we have Stipe, he's ready to go. Yeah, you can have anybody ready to go. Jon Jones doesn't want to fight anyone with Francis Ngannou. He doesn't want to fight for less than a lot of money. And until those things are remedied, we're not going to see Jon Jones fight. I don't think we ever see Jon Jones fight again. I really
never.
Yeah, I don't think we see him again. So it's someone has to give in terms of the money in the fight, and the UFC has no motivation to do that. Jon Jones gave up the light heavyweight title, so he can't hold up a division, right? So I don't see either party. I don't see either party giving in at all at this point. So I don't think he fights Stipe. It doesn't matter what Stipe wants. Doesn't matter what Dana White wants. Jon Jones doesn't want to fight anyone with Francis Ngannou for a lot of money.
Wow, man! If he never comes back, that's got to be the saddest thing that's ever happened in combat sport. Let me just ask you this though: if he did come back, let's say Gane fights Ngannou and Ngannou loses, right? Which is, a fair outcome that people think could happen. How much do you think of a loss is it? The fact that they couldn't make this Jon Jones Ngannou fight, the fact that it never came together at that stage.
Loss for whom?
I guess the fans, the fact that it's a big fight. And honestly, it reminds me a lot of boxing, Jimmy, how there were big fights around that could have been capitalized on, but never happened because of politics.
Right. But keeping down payroll is more important for the UFC. And that's something I've said over and over and over again, that like letting go of this fight or this fighter, in this case, Jon Jones, is more important than in terms of keeping payroll down than whatever we get out of this one big fight. Whatever we get out of Jon Jones for the rest of his career, cutting this out and making sure that payroll stays at a manageable level as far as UFC sees it, that's everything. That's worth Jon Jones. It's worth this fight. It's worth anything. And Dana White knows that. He's a businessman. He gets it. When you look at the numbers Jon Jones generated in terms of pay-per-views, a lot of other champions would say, hey, I generated those numbers too. Where's my money? And in order to keep that from happening, he's willing to cut off Jon Jones. He's willing to cut off Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou or Ciryl Gane or anybody else. It's more important to keep payroll down. That's what he's going to do.
Just on Jon Jones and whether he does or doesn't come back, we spoke to Randy Couture the other day, and he made a very, very, very good point, which is that in his battle with the UFC, he realized that time just wasn't on his hand. And he basically, they were trying to bankrupt him. They were going to drag it out as long as possible. And he realized if he's going to fight, he needs to basically do it now before he gets too old to compete. Do you think Jon Jones might come to a similar realization? Because he's a pretty young guy. He's 34 years old. I almost feel like and a bored Jon Jones is not really a great Jon Jones. I almost feel like at his age, he's going to want to do something that, he does enjoy and gives his life meaning. I almost feel like at some point he's going to be like, you know what, I do want to come back and fight because life's kind of boring without the attention and achieving these things.
Possibly. But he's going to have to cave. Randy caved. He's got to cave. He's got to just go, okay, fine, I'll do it without the money. I'll do a different opponent. I'll do whatever it is. And does he have enough? Is he satisfied enough to go there? Is he satisfied enough with his legacy and the money he has put away or whatever investments he has that he doesn't have to do this anymore? That's a big part of it. That's almost everything. If Jon Jones can say, all right, I've done everything I need to do, I'm content walking away. The party that can walk away always has an advantage in negotiation. Who is that? I think right now it's both of them are willing to walk away. And will Jon Jones ever come back and go, okay, it's I'll do another fight? Well, he sat out all of 2021. His thinking, a champ in 2022. Okay, you lost a whole year now. How is next year going to be any different? The only way next year's different is you take less money, and I don't know if that happens.
Can you think of a fighter that is as great as Jon Jones that cut his career as in his prime? In your mind, does anyone pop up if that really happened? Like, does Jon Jones take that #1 ranking? Out of boxing, out of MMA, out of anything? A fighter in his prime. Like, I'm thinking Ali when he couldn't fight because he didn't go in the army, and there was that period where we didn't know if it was going to happen. Obviously, I wasn't around for that, Jimmy, but just going in the history books. But I'm just trying to literally think of a dominant champion, someone like that in their prime who just didn't come back to fight because of the politics, because they couldn't get on the same page.
GSP, you could argue, was still obviously the Johnny Hendricks fight. I thought he lost that fight. A lot of people thought he lost that fight, but still, came back and beat Bisping for the 185-pound title. Still extremely capable. He had a lot of miles left on him. That's about it. Muhammad Ali was forced out. It wasn't, he had no choice in the matter. He didn't walk away. He was stripped by the athletic commissions involved. So there's that. And of course, he ended up coming back. So he would be, without a doubt, the greatest combat sports athlete to walk away. Floyd Mayweather, you could argue, still had some fights left in him. He retired, obviously, undefeated. Rocky Marciano retired undefeated, was training for a comeback. And then obviously tragically died in a plane crash, but he was coming back he was training for a comeback against Ingmar Johansson. And when Johansson lost to Floyd Patterson, he decided, I don't want to fight Patterson and cancel his comeback. So there are a couple examples, but I think Jon Jones would probably be #1 considering his record and his age.
Yeah, what an unbelievable shame that would be. And speaking of shames, you know what would be a shame? If you're walking around with anything less than the smoothest balls in town. Don't ever do that. Get the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0, the latest and greatest in grooming technology, the best grooming tool on the market in the world. You've got the 7,000 RPM of pure ball shaving power. You've got the skin-safe technology, so you never cut yourself with that ceramic braid. The 4.0 comes with all sorts of different guards, so you can have all sorts of texture all over your junk if you like. It also comes, the Performance Package 4.0 comes with the Weed Whacker, which is the best nose hair trimmer on the market. It also comes with the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, so you can put that on in the morning and smell nice and fresh. The Crop Reviver Toner, which is like a mid-game check, so you smell good all the time, everywhere. The Performance Boxer Briefs, so you got some fresh undies, and the Shed Travel Bag to carry it all together, so you can be mobile and shave your balls wherever you are. Get the 20% off that they are offering right now. 20% discount with the code SUBMISSION. Save some money, shave your balls. That's the key to life, isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. That is money in the bank. And you know what else is money in the bank? The money that all the people made who signed up to my bookie with the promo code submission. If you guys missed out on that up to a $1,000 bonus on your first deposit, don't worry. There is still time. There are still big fights coming up. Go to my bookie today. Use that promo code submission. Get up to a $1,000 bonus on your first deposit. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with my bookie. And guys, if you haven't had a chance either, check out our new friends at Matchpoint, because they basically tell you exactly where you can find a pub near you that is definitely going to be showing the fights. Matchpoint lists all the pubs and bars that are showing sports near you. It doesn't have to be fighting. It can be all the best sports out there. You go on the website. There is a link in the description. You guys just click that, and that would show you where the UFC 265 fights were. Take note for future UFC cards, because there is a lot to gain from the Matchpoint app. Click the link and download the app today.
Yeah, that's right. Times are tough, so if you don't want to be paying $50-$60 to watch a pay-per-view, go to the pub, watch it for free, go with your buddies, have some beer and some wings, and Matchpoint will help you. The best and nearest pubs close to you. You've got your pick of the entire town. You can check out reviews, check out if they've got any deals. Click on the link, and then it'll show you a map, or go to your navigation on your phone. It'll take you straight there from our good friends at Matchpoint.
That's right. But Jimmy, I also want to give a shout out to Aldo, man. What a performance, and really showing us that he's found a time machine somewhere, or some kind of special way to stay in the pot. I mean, looked as good as always, and excited to see what happens for him next. But Jimmy, I want to get your thoughts on Vicente Luque as well before we let you go. And that is the fact that he was able to put that DAS choke on Michael Chiesa, finish the fight in that fashion. He's got an impressive record. I mean, beating Tyron Woodley. He is a real problem in the division. The real question, though, is what do you think is next for him? Where does he go from here?
Well, the good news is Kamaru Usman is just chewing down opposition. He's just mowing down everybody. So should he get past Covington, which I think he probably does, we might see Vicente Luque simply because he's just recycling opponents. It's like, okay, when you look at the top five, he's beating everybody. You know, beat Gilbert Burns. He beat Jorge Masvidal. He beat Colby Covington, and beat Masvidal twice. Would it be Covington twice? What, you get Burns again? Vicente Luque just may be the guy who's on the outside, hasn't fought the champ yet, maybe on the streak necessary to sneak in there and get the opportunity. He could certainly do that. And Jose Aldo, it was funny. He showed enough that he looked sharp and quick, and the leg kick was good. He wasn't the fire-breathing animal he once was. So the problem is that this division is so good. 135, I put it second to 155 in terms of depth of divisions in the UFC, that the problem is it's going to be hard to beat anybody above him. He was ranked 5th right now. It probably doesn't go any higher. The guys above him are murderers, and it's I don't see him being those guys. So great performance, great stuff. Can he really advance? I don't know at 135. It's a very tough division.
Yeah, the UFC kind of doesn't really do these legend versus legend fights much anymore. They're usually trying to feed the older guys to the younger guys. But as a hypothetical, how would you feel about a Dominick Cruz versus Jose Aldo fight?
Done. Take my money. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. The movement versus the leg kicks.
What's up?
The footwork versus the leg kicks.
Oh, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great. And then, also, Jose Aldo had really nice, tight, sharp combinations for sure. So that would be the fight to make, because I just don't see Aldo, getting, we saw what happened against Peter Yan. I don't think Aljamain Sterling's any different. Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw. That's your top four. Killer, right? So I don't think he gets past any of those guys. So, hey, have that Legends fight, make some money, have some fun. That's what I'd love to see Jose Aldo do.
Last one from us, Jimmy, and then we'll let you go because I know it's super late there. Rafael Fiziev, what did you make of him? I know he got a little bit tired towards the end of the fight, and it was a close one against Bobby Green. But what do you think about him as a prospect in the lightweight division?
I love his style. I absolutely love it. The issue he's going to have is, God, it's a slog through 155. You know what I mean? It's like, what start Dan Hooker, right? That guy's an absolute killer. Even though he's, been up and out in his last few fights, the guy's still absolutely unbelievable. So when you look at the top 10, you have Islam Makhachev, RDA, you have just, even when you start getting into that fringe top 10, it's like, oh, they're all really, really, really good. So the step up past Bobby Green is going to be big. So it's almost like, you know, I know you guys are from down under. I'm from LA, where the shelf out in the ocean is like suddenly like this, and boom, it is deep. And I think that's 155. It's like, okay, Bobby Green, whoop, and then it's okay. You want to be top 10? Here's an absolute savage with a ton of experience. So I love Fiziev and I love his style. But it gets so much harder right after this. His next fight's going to tell us a lot.
Well, you can follow the man himself at Jimmy Smith MMA on Twitter. Of course, check him out on Unlocking the Cage on SiriusXM, UFC Fight Camp, and the voice of WWE Monday Night Raw. Dude, congratulations, by the way. We haven't had a chance to congratulate you. What an unbelievable gig for you. You're doing so well, and just so happy to see you in that position. It's a perfect fit, Jimmy.
It's a lot of fun, man. And so it's just like learning a totally new sports entertainment genre. And it's been awesome, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Super happy for you, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your time, man. We'll let you go. Have a great night, Jimmy.
Have a good one, guys.